This pumpkin pie right here and almost everything on this table for our Thanksgiving feast was grown and raised right here on our homestead. And I can't wait to dig in, but first, let's go back and show you how we made everything.
Tomorrow is going to be a really big day of cooking for me, and so I am coming down here in the basement, root cellar, fridges, freezers, and gathering all the ingredients that I need for tomorrow so that I can just get rolling right in the morning. First of all, I'm gonna need plenty of white potatoes for mashed potatoes. I'm trying to get ones that are on their way out with the virus Y because those need to be used first. And then I need a butternut squash for our pumpkin pie. We actually really enjoy a good butternut squash pie much more than pumpkin. It's just like richer and smoother and sweeter in our opinions. Then we need a few sweet potatoes for our maple and thyme sweet potato hash. I'm also gonna grab a few onions. I'm gonna put those with the chicken and also with the sweet potato hash. Also gonna grab a couple garlics for the sweet potato hash and the chicken. And I think that's it for the root cellar. So spoiler alert, we are not cooking up a turkey tomorrow. We have chicken here that we raise on our homestead, and so that is what we're gonna be using. We have not added turkeys to our list of animals that we grow yet. So here is a great whole chicken. Whenever we do our chicken butchering, we always keep a few of them whole for holidays and things like that. All right, we also need some strawberry or raspberry jam. I think we'll do raspberry jam to go with our fresh bread. We also need some green beans. Me and Cody are currently fighting over whether we should do canned green beans or freezer green beans. He's winning at this point.
Canned greens are better.
No, they're not.
We've got everything ready to go first thing in the morning, but real quick, I want to tell you about the sponsor of this video, Element. My sister and I just completed a 50K trail run at the Shawnee State Park here in Ohio. I was afraid I might end up cramping up during or after the run, but I didn't, and I really feel like it was thanks to Element. Element is an electrolyte drink mix that I knew would have the stuff in it that I would need, but without junk like sugar, artificial colorings and flavors or fillers. Salty. Instead, it's a science-backed electrolyte ratio of 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. Right now, Element is offering the More Than Farmers community a free sample pack with any order. That's 8 single-serving packets free with any order. This is a great way to try all 8 flavors. Citrus is my favorite, or share Element with a friend. You can get this deal at drinkelement.com/morethanfarmers, and it's only available through that link. So you got to go to drinklmnt.com/morethanfarmers to get yours.
It is time to start rolling with our Thanksgiving meal.
Today is looking like it's going to be a really big day. We need coffee and tea.
First of all, I'm gonna be putting these cast iron Dutch ovens into the oven at 400 for about 30 minutes to get them heated up to bake the bread. And then I'm gonna start on the star of the show, which is the chicken. I'm gonna start out by chopping some onions, like not finely, but just dicing them, putting them in the bottom of this crock pot, and then also making some garlic butter to put over our chicken. The layer of onions on the bottom of the crock pot will keep the chicken out of the juice, so it'll keep it from getting soggy. This is one of my new favorite kitchen tools. This chopper is amazing.
Garlic in.
I'm gonna heat up some garlic butter with a little bit of thyme in it and stuff the inside of the chicken with this. It'll help the meat to have some nice flavor.
That sounds good.
I'm gonna take a spoon and just gently pull the skin away from the flesh so that I can pour the garlic and herb butter inside of here so that it can really flavor up the meat. If you just put your oil and seasonings on top of the skin tastes really good, but the meat doesn't have all of that lovely flavor in it. I brought in a whole bunch of thyme from the garden because there's supposed to be a frost soon. So I'm just gonna strip some of this off and use fresh thyme on the top of the chicken. I could have used this inside the chicken. Honestly, I forgot about it until just now. Ooh, that smells amazing.
Burn hole!
The skin like holds it in there. It doesn't run out because everything is all intact. So it's like just this bag that holds all that flavor right in there. I'm just going to spread olive oil and salt and pepper and thyme on the top yet. I'm gonna put just a little bit of broth around the bottom just to create some nice steam. The chicken itself is gonna be releasing lots of juices, and those juices that are released are what I'm gonna be using to make the gravy. But I'm just gonna start it out with a little bit of bone broth down in there. I'm gonna set this on high, and hopefully it will be done in 5 to 6 hours or something like that. Maybe a little bit sooner, we'll just have to see. Once the chicken has cooked all the way through, is nice and tender, falling off the bone, I'm gonna take it out and put it under the broiler just for a few minutes just to make the skin nice and crispy.
This butternut squash needs to get washed off just a little bit. This came out of our garden, and we're gonna have to cut it in half and put it in the oven to soften it up to puree for our pumpkin pie, even if it's not pumpkin. Butternut squash, we found, makes better pumpkin pie. On a regular basis, I'm not usually helping Michelle in the kitchen, but often for holiday meals and stuff, I do help her. That's a little uneven. I really like to make apple pies. I do that at Christmas. Sometimes I make dishes at Christmas and stuff like that, but on a regular basis, it's Michelle. We'll just be honest. Now, I know the question that's coming. Everybody is gonna ask if we're gonna save these seeds to plant in our garden next year. And we are actually. This is gonna go in this pan here with some water down in the bottom to create some steam. I'm gonna put some tin foil on top. All right, squash in. And then these Dutch ovens are getting nice and hot, so Michelle's gonna get the bread in there.
I've had this sourdough bread in the refrigerator overnight. The sourdough bread bakes for 20 minutes with the lid on the Dutch oven, and then 20 minutes with the lid off to make that nice brown crispy shell. We have a whole bunch of recipes that use butter, so I'm going to get a bunch of butter out. This is all homemade butter from our Guernsey cow. I made it, most of it this spring and then through like early summer, so that we would have all the yummy vitamins and minerals from grass-fed milk. Look how yellow that is. Crazy, crazy yellow. I don't weigh my butter when I freeze it and make it, so I am just measuring out 4 ounces here for my pie crust. I use an incredibly simple pie crust recipe. I've been using this crust recipe for years. I use whole grain spelt flour, which I get from Dutch Valley, and then raw butter and half a teaspoon of salt. And it makes this lovely,
half a teaspoon of salt.
It makes this lovely pie crust. I also like to use my blender instead of like working it in with a fork. It's just so much easier. I feel like especially homemade butter can tend to be a little softer than store-bought butter, and so I make sure that my butter is like frozen or just a tiny bit thawed. I will link the recipe for this pie crust in the description box. I'm gonna add in a 1/4 cup of ice water. Everybody talks about not overworking your pie dough, and what I realized was that for years I was underworking my pie dough. There's a good balance between overworking and underworking. You definitely don't want your pie dough to like work up the gluten and make it like stretchy. Nobody wants a pie dough that's not flaky. I'm gonna refrigerate this just for a little bit. I do not like to work with a pie dough that's too cold. I think I'm gonna chill it for maybe 10 or 15 minutes.
We've got the bread baking and the squash baking. We've got that crust chilling in the fridge. So while that's all going on, we're gonna start chopping up veggies.
Oh, that looks lovely. I'm also gonna check and see if the squash is done yet. Ouch. I'm gonna leave it for just a little bit longer. Oh, now the squash needs to come out.
Oh my goodness.
Smells amazing. Once this squash cools down a bit, I'm going to take a spoon and scoop the flesh right out of the skins, and we'll be ready to put it in the blender to make a puree for pumpkin pie.
We're chopping up sweet potatoes and white potatoes. We're making a sweet potato hash, so these actually need to get cubed up. And then Michelle is working on the white potatoes to make mashed potatoes. Our sweet potatoes really turned out very good this year. We're happy with that. And these potatoes here, the white potatoes that we're using for the mashed potatoes, they're the ones that had virus Y.
Well, it ends up that our seed potatoes, they were infected with some kind of virus. It's called virus Y.
But Michelle cut the bad spots out, and they are still very usable.
They're absolutely delicious. They just have some bad spots, don't we all?
Really cool thing about this chopper. So Michelle was using this small one to cut up the garlic. And here is a bigger one that we'll use to make the cubes for our sweet potato hash.
Look at him go.
Now, if you want to get your husband to help you in the kitchen, get cool tools like this. This feels manly. Bam! I'm honestly not just like a huge fan of pumpkin pie, but Michelle makes really, really good pumpkin pie, and I do really like it.
This crust looks extra colorful, but it's just because we use that Guernsey butter. That Guernsey butter is like neon yellow and it colors everything. Our favorite pumpkin pie recipe is out of the book Farmhouse Flavors. This is a Mennonite cookbook. I don't feel right just printing this recipe out for you guys because this book is copyrighted and it wouldn't be fair to the woman who wrote this book, but you can buy this recipe book online. It's not on Amazon, but we'll leave a couple links in the description below for you guys. Start out with our lovely pumpkin. Our cow is dry right now. So very, very sadly, we are using heavy cream from the grocery store. We're gonna put in our farm fresh eggs. You have to use blue eggs for this recipe. Just kidding. I promise that's not true. Teaspoon of salt.
Precisely.
I'm gonna pour this back into the blender and whip it right up.
Basic girl pumpkin spice.
I'm all about pumpkin spice everything. I don't care if people mock me. I like pumpkin spice. Can you just like drink this whole thing? Honestly, this is the way I would eat my pumpkin pie, just like drinking the custard straight out of the blender. I made 2 batches, like a double batch of this custard, and I'm gonna just make one without a crust. I find that like the butternut squash puree goes bad really quickly in the fridge. Like within a few days, it'll start tasting off and get rotten. So I'm just gonna make this into a custard and we'll eat it later. I'm gonna start this out at 400 for just like a few minutes, like 5 minutes, and then I'll turn it down to 350 and bake it until the custard is just set. I'm just spreading a little bit of egg yolk on these leaves. They might not look like leaves once I'm done with them, but you know, sprinkle them with some sugar, and these will look very pretty on top of our pumpkin pie. Do you think they'll sink?
They look a little sinkish.
Pumpkin pie is done. It's still just a tiny bit. It wiggles a little bit, which is perfect. I'm gonna let this pie cool for, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes or so, and then I'm gonna put it in the fridge and refrigerate it because I personally love a nice cold pumpkin pie. I really like when the custard is set. I don't like a warm pumpkin pie.
There's one more thing we need from our basement. Score! This is popcorn that we raised in our garden. You raise it just like regular corn, but you leave it on the stalk until it gets dry. Then we shell it and pop it, and it tastes so much better than popcorn from the grocery store. We are gonna make caramel popcorn for this evening. After supper, just chill, maybe watch some YouTube, drink some spiced apple cider. I've gotten 2 different like hand crank corn shellers, and they're too big for this small ladyfinger popcorn, so we have these small things. They're called a little stripper, and they shell the corn. And it works pretty well, but it just takes a little more work. But Izzy can do this while we go and work on some other stuff in there.
I'm gonna be making our ice cream concentrate now to go with our pumpkin pie. I like to put the ice cream concentrate in the freezer like ahead of time because our ice cream freezer doesn't make the ice cream really thick, and so I like to freeze it and stir it a few times and let it thicken up in the freezer.
So what Michelle just said might have been a little confusing. I know I would have been confused if I didn't already know what she was talking about because she used the word freezer for two different appliances. The ice cream maker that we have does a really good job of making ice cream, but with homemade ice cream, it still just doesn't get to that like stiff, scoopable consistency that everybody loves for ice cream. So once it's done in there, she likes to take it and put it into the freezer and let it be in there for a while so it gets more solid.
So I just cracked about 3 eggs in here. Unfortunately, we have to use heavy cream from the store, but that's okay. This ice cream is still gonna taste delicious. I like to use mostly cream. Every now and then I'll add a little bit of whole milk, but usually I just add all cream. Okay. That is really thick, holy cow.
Holy cow.
I didn't even mean to do that. I'm gonna put maple syrup in there. This is a to taste thing. About 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And then I like to add just about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt.
Probably needs more maple syrup. Once it's frozen, I don't think it's as sweet as the concentrate.
So you think it needs more sweet?
I would put a little bit more.
My word. Another hack that I like to do to make so that the ice cream stiffens up quicker in the freezer after it's been churned is I put the actual bowl that I'm going to put the ice cream into the freezer so that it's nice and cold.
All done. It's all shelled, but there's some like chaff stuff in there, so to separate it, it's a little breezy out here. Just gonna go from one bowl to the other.
We're gonna make caramel popcorn with our homegrown popcorn. It takes 1/2 cup of butter, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and a cup of maple syrup, and we're gonna boil that to 296 degrees. It takes a little bit of time, and you have to watch it very carefully. You have to stand right by it, but it is worth it, trust me.
All right, this popcorn has to be ready when that caramel is ready, so we need to get popping. Avocado in. And for the amount of caramel that she's making, we want to use 1/2 cup of popcorn. You can do it over a campfire like this too.
Yeah, we do have one that we use for a campfire. We use a separate one because we don't want to wreck the one we use in the house.
It smells so good. Uh-oh, here's some pops. I honestly don't just love popcorn, like salted popcorn. Definitely not one of my favorite snacks. It's really fun to do. But caramel popcorn, I could just eat and eat and eat. And it is still sugar, but it is pretty cool that it's literally just maple syrup and butter cooked together.
I feel like the food industry has made food so complicated.
Yeah.
Like when you look at the back of a caramel candy, it has like a long ingredient list. And this is literally just butter and maple syrup.
I think that's done, no more popping. And you want to get it out of the thing right away so it doesn't burn. Woo, beautiful.
This is almost at 300 and it's starting to turn dark brown and I do not want to burn it. Oh, this is so epic. This stuff tastes so good. Like, who thought you could get this from a cow in a tree? Seriously? Once you pour this caramel on, you want to have everything, your spoon, your bowl, your popcorn, everything ready because it will harden just like that. And we heated it to the hard crack stage. And so once it gets hard, there's no mixing it into the popcorn. Be sure to turn the bowl on before you actually pour the concentrate in. While this ice cream is freezing, we are going to go and pick some salad outside in our raised bed. Is it yummy? Yeah. Shall we get that? Here's a nice tomato, and here's a nice tomato.
Can I lick that?
Sure, you can lick that. There you go.
Thanks.
Okay, can you take it to the table?
Here's our chilled bowl, all ready to go.
Not sure if I would call that a bowl. Now, into the freezer to chill some more, and it really sets up nice.
Cody is supposed to take a course this winter about making hard cheeses, so you guys need to keep him accountable and make sure that he actually does it.
Hopefully we'll have our own apples next year even maybe. But for now, we bought some apples to make apple cider because we absolutely love apple cider, especially hot spiced apple cider in the fall and the winter. And we really don't like it from the store. It just has like a weird wang to it.
We just need to chop a bunch of apples in half and run them through a blender. Then we'll strain it through a cloth, and that's cider.
It kind of takes a lot of apples to make this stuff, especially if they're not insanely juicy, and these are not. So we're probably gonna do this set of apples here yet, and we'll probably add a little bit of apple juice from the store. Just to stretch it farther, it'll still have that really good like fresh apple cider taste. Because apples are expensive, we need to have our own.
We're now ready to get into the last minute details of the meal. We're almost done. I like to make my mashed potatoes in the Instant Pot because it's just so easy, and the potatoes get very nice and mushy, I guess you could say. Cover them with water and turn it to high pressure for 10 minutes and you'll have the perfect potatoes every time. I'm gonna start on our sweet potato hash now. I'm gonna heat up this avocado oil and put a nice thin, not too thick layer of sweet potatoes on here. Cody wins. We're doing canned green beans, which is easier than steaming the frozen ones, so I let him have his win.
So we all win.
Yeah. I like to saute the sweet potatoes for a while before adding in the garlic, just simply because the garlic will burn really fast and then it will like make the whole hash taste burnt. I like to cook these sweet potatoes on low with the lid on for a little bit so that they can get soft, and then I take the lid off and crisp them up.
Time in.
Adding thyme and maple syrup to these sweet potatoes just like makes them like caramely, and I don't know, somehow the thyme is just the perfect herb to add to this dish. These sweet potatoes are nice and soft now, so I'm going to start getting them a little bit crispy. I'm going to add in my maple syrup. I just add a nice drizzle over top. Our chicken is done. I'm super excited about this chicken. Look at the deliciousness.
There you go. Only left one leg behind.
Oh, that juice is gonna make amazing gravy. I'm going to get the onions out. I don't want the onions in my gravy. I'm gonna pop this bird under the broiler for just a few minutes, just until the skin is nice and crispy.
The moment we've all been waiting for. B-roll music.
I'm mixing up gravy here from the drippings of the chicken. You all might be wondering why we're not having dressing. You're just gonna have to talk to Cody about that. He thinks dressing is disgusting. He doesn't even want to have it on his table, so I guess we won't have dressing.
And if you're from my part of the world, we called it stuffing. I just don't like it. It's disgusting, soggy bread.
I think it's really good, but I don't think it's good enough to like put in the extra work. I just decided.
I was gonna say, I did say you can make it.
Yeah, you said
So
I could
you
make
act
it.
like you're blaming it on me that I said, no, we're not gonna have stuffing.
Well, okay, so I would have taken the time to make it if you had really liked it, but
Right.
it's enough work, enough extra work that I was like, if you don't want it, then I'm not gonna make it, so.
Yeah, just don't blame it on me.
Gravy was like the highlight of my dad's Thanksgiving meal, so whenever I make gravy, I think of my dad.
Cream cheese, sour cream, butter.
For the potatoes, and then some brown butter for the top. No skimping on Thanksgiving Day. When you're making mashed potatoes, you always whip them smooth first before adding anything in, otherwise they'll be lumpy. In goes all the yumminess. I'm gonna add in a little bit of milk. Those are perfect.
We are finally ready for the feast. We still have to make the spice cider later, but first we want to dig into the main course. My dad and youngest sister live nearby, so we invited them over to help us eat it all. And don't forget, after the main course, we still have to get out the pumpkin pie and ice cream. I can't wait to see how those turned out.
That was a really good supper, and I am pretty full. We still have the popcorn coming and some spiced apple cider. And I just need to put this on like a medium heat. And then we're gonna put cloves, ginger, and cinnamon in here. Cloves, just a sprinkle, and the ginger a little more, and then a bunch of cinnamon on there. There's like no utensils left to stir this stuff, so we use a butter knife. That is good. Your kiddos can come get cider if you want. Now maybe we did cheat just a little bit, and there is some food on here that we didn't raise on our homestead. But we did a challenge a while back where we ate only food that we grew for 48 hours, and that video is right here.